this virtual plan amendment meeting for the
Maureen, want to
city
hold
of
off? It's not recording yet.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Now it's recording.
Okay, thank you. So welcome to this virtual plan amendment meeting for NPA 2022-0017.01. My name is Maureen Meredith. I am the plan amendment case manager. If you haven't done so already, please let us know who is here by typing your name in the chat box. And if you're associated with an organization, if you could provide that information as well. I will use this as my sign-in sheet for the meeting tonight. Please mute your microphone if you're joining by phone. Please turn off your video if you're participating online to save bandwidth, and this meeting will be recorded. So how to participate today. The speech bubble in the menu bar at the bottom or the top of your screen will open the chat box where you can type your questions in at any time. Please limit general comments until the end of the Q&A session. After the presentations, you can click on the raise hand icon to be called on to speak. Telephone participants will be given an opportunity to ask questions, and we will call out the last 4 digits of your phone number when we get to that part in the Q&A. So as you know, this property is in the Crestview Wooten Combined Neighborhood Planning Area. As I said, I'm the Plan Amendment Case Manager, and Heather Chaffin is the Zoning Case Manager. This is our contact information, and I will present it again at the end of the presentation when we start the Q&A. So the agenda tonight, I will go into basic case information, how to participate in the process, why is there a plan amendment application, what is a future land use map. I'll do a brief presentation on the applicant's request. Michael Galdini will do a presentation and hopefully provide more detail. Then we'll open the floor to the questions and answers. So here's the property addresses: 6916, 6926, 6928 North Lamar, and 808, 810, 812, and 906 Justin Lane. It's 2.9 acres. The case plan amendment case number is NPA 2022-0017.01. Project name is Crestview Village. The future land use is specific regulating district. There is no proposed change to the future land use map. The associated zoning case number is C14-2022-0035. The request is to change the allowable maximum building height from 60 feet to 160 feet. The property owner applicant is 3423 Holdings LLC. Peter Barlin is the manager. The agent is Armbrust Brown, and Michael Galdini is the agent. So if you're wondering why we're having a plan amendment meeting for a case that is not changing the future land use map, it is because of this section of the station area plan. It says, for a station area plan that is within an adopted neighborhood plan area, an amendment to the station area plan must be reviewed and approved in accordance with the neighborhood plan amendment process established by council. Guidelines for group discussion. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time during this meeting. Please postpone general comments during the Q&A session. After staff and applicant's presentation, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand symbol on the menu bar. Telephone participants will be able to speak during the Q&A session. Attendees will be muted upon arrival and through the staff and applicant presentations. Then staff will open the floor to questions and answers in the chat by attendees raising their hands to speak. Similar questions may be grouped and answered together. Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking for the sake of sound quality and clarity of conversation. If you're having connection issues, please turn off your video until called upon to ask your questions. Like I said, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the speakupaustin.org/MPA website. You can email or call me and Heather with any questions or comments that you have. Written comments will be added to staff case reports. You will get a notice in the mail with the date and time of the Planning Commission and City Council hearings if you live within 500 feet, with instructions on how to participate in these hearings. The cases have not been scheduled for Planning Commission or City Council at this time. So why is there a plan amendment application? Neighborhood plans are adopted by City Council as amendments to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. The city charter requires zoning changes to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Most neighborhood plan amendments are changes to the future land use map. Most neighborhood plan amendments also have an associated zoning application. This map shows in blue the areas that have City Council approved neighborhood plans, most of which have text. In this case, there is the Lamar Justin TOD station area plan. And the proposed change to the station area plan is the map that would change the base maximum height from 60 feet to 160 feet. There's also a regulating plan. This would be the zoning case that Heather Chafin is processing. There's a map in the regulating plan where the proposed change would be made as well. Because the TOD is within the Crestview Wooten, there is also the Crestview Wooten plan. And this is the future land use map for the plan, and it shows the specific regulating district with the green color with the white stipple. There is the chart that shows it a little bit close up. Here's a close up of the flum. This is an aerial photo of the property, 2.9 acres. A Google map that shows some of the surrounding uses to the property. See, it has some frontage on North Lamar and Justin Lane. Again, or aerial photo with the future land use overlay. Aerial photo with the zoning is the TOD neighborhood plan existing zoning. This is the growth concept map that shows the centers and activity corridors. And this map shows the property in relation to the Crestview Station Regional Center with North Lamar, and you can see Airport Boulevard as activity centers. This shows the map where the proximity to park facilities. And that ends my presentation. I will start sharing.
Thank you. And I'll pull up our presentation, and Ben Barlin is here. Him and his brother Peter own the site. So if Ben, you want to kind of kick us off while I start pulling up our PowerPoint from our end.
Well, thank you very much for everybody being here today. This is an important meeting, I'm sure, to everybody. And we are excited to present to you what we have today. We really look forward, as I have been for the last 3 years, working with the community to come up with the very best plan and amenities for the community to really make this Crestview Village a place of pride and a place for the community. And this is just one step in that, of which we will be giving you a little more detail today. If anybody was on the transit meeting a week ago, you've seen a little bit of it as well, and probably have a little more insight into that. So with that, I turn this over to Michael, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Can everyone see the slides? Should say
Yes.
Crestview Village. Perfect. So thanks, Ben. Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Galdini. I'm one of the agents for the case. With me tonight are Ben Barlin, the owner you just met. Connor Kenny is here from Civilitude. He's part of our development team. Michael Whalen, who I work with at Armbrust and Brown. So we've got our whole teams here. Also, thanks to the city staffers who are here with us, Maureen Meredith and Mark Walters, who are hosting this. I think I saw Louisa Brinsmaid in here from the District 7 office. And to our neighborhood folks, a bunch of neighborhood folks, Mike Levine, president of the Neighborhood Association, Chip Harris from the neighborhood as well. So this is going to be the basic structure of my presentation this evening. I'm going to kick us off with an overview of the site. You all are already familiar with it, I'm sure, where it is, what exists there today. It's mainly some older commercial and industrial uses. After that, I'll recap what city policies call for at this specific location and where we stand in terms of key city goals relating to things like housing, affordability, and transit. Spoiler alert, there's some progress to be made on those issues. And finally, I'll walk through what our vision for this site is and how this vision would deliver on key city goals. Specifically, as was mentioned, our request is for 160 feet. And on this site, I'm going to say on a portion of this site, and I'll speak to that in a moment, and it's going to be the part fronting on a North Lamar, which would allow us to build up rather than building out. And that would enable us to provide a meaningful expansion of the project's envisioned parkland. And as we'll see in a moment, that dynamic leveraging height in order to free up more space for parkland and other opportunities is really at the core of this particular case. So when I say site, you can see in front of you what I'm talking about. This is just to orient us. This area is a bit bigger than what Maureen was talking about, because Maureen was talking specifically about the case. And I'm going to disaggregate this for us in a moment, but there's 3 tracks. The case that's in front of us today, technically the case about the additional height and only about the additional height, is the portion that Maureen showed. Again, I'll show you how all these tracks interact. But just for a moment, I want us to think about the full site, the full Crestview Village vision, which involves that kind of entire area, because really all of these components play together, and it wouldn't really make sense if I just tried to talk about one in isolation. So here's what we mean. Many of y'all are aware this site is used today for a number of kind of auto-centric commercial, office, industrial uses. If you're like me and you walk by this site every morning on your way to the train or wherever you're going, you'll know that this kind of component here is in use right now. So this is a little bit of an outdated photo, but it still gives you a sense of kind of the scale. And you also know if you walk by it that there's usually all sorts of cars there in the morning. It's, the building was built at a period of time where it was a very auto-centric kind of design. And so it's not necessarily the most pedestrian friendly at this point in time. Go down a little bit more, you can see more of the site stretching back. Again, there's wide kind of curb cuts. It's very vehicle oriented. And it also, our overall site encompasses that big Austin Energy city-owned site that the city has been looking to redevelop. And I'll speak to that in a moment as well. So that's what exists here today, which begs the broader question of, if this site is going to redevelop, what does the city want it to become? And the city's laid out some pretty clear and consistent guidance on that question. So if we take a look at the site in the context of the city's many different plans and policies, we can see that A, it's at the heart of the Lamar Justin Transit-Oriented Development Area, TOD, which prioritizes projects that are walkable and can support public transit. It's also, as Maureen mentioned, at the intersection of 2 Imagine Austin corridors, and it's on the Transit Priority Network. It's also at an Austin Strategic Mobility Plan mobility hub. And all of this points to this being a strategic location where the city wants to direct additional growth and height and help meet Austin's housing needs, providing greater affordability, and to plan growth around our transit system. And that's particularly important here because this site is actually one of the most transit-rich locations in the entire city, outside of downtown, where all of where all of our routes kind of intersect. But outside of that area, this is one of the most transit-rich locations in the city. It currently has access to 6 existing bus routes, including 4 of the top routes in the entire city. It's located right, as you know, on the city's only metro rail line, and is along 2 future Project Connect rail lines, the orange and blue lines. So this will actually be at the intersection of 3 rail lines in the city of Austin, and put a pin on that because we'll be coming back to that in a moment. It's also on the bicycle priority network and along a tier 1 urban trail. And it is within a high opportunity area where the city is looking to secure more long-term and deep affordable housing. So what does the city envision here? The city's policies and plans, if I could kind of sum up all of those disparate threads, identify this as a place where the city wants to direct growth and to direct additional height, and not just any growth, but growth that can actually provide more housing, more affordability, and that can support a stronger transit system, as well as a comfortable pedestrian and bike environment. So strategic sites like this are also incredibly important for another reason, and that is because they help the city deliver on its broader goals for things like affordability and mobility, not just kind of for the area, but their general goals. And I've lined up a number of city goals here. We're going to go through them fairly rapid fire, but just to orient you to kind of the scales we're using, 100% here, the total is going to be the city goal. So anything below that is giving you a sense of the magnitude of how far we may be falling short or need more progress at the moment. So we've got our citywide housing goals. which we're falling significantly short on over just the first 3 years of tracking. The new data for 2021 hasn't come out yet, but this is the 3 years of tracking on those goals. Our District 7 affordable housing goals, which we're also falling short on. And this is not unique to District 7, by the way. We're only listing District 7 specifically because that's the district in which this project is located. Our citywide goals for continuum care units. Those are the affordable units that are available at the deepest level of affordability and with things like wraparound services that provide support and stability. As you can see here, we're also falling short on those. Best practices for transit supportive housing. This is taken directly from a Federal Transit Administration document. They have a range of 9 to 15 units per acre near a rail station that is needed at a minimum. That's a minimum to support frequent and reliable transit service. This station area currently falls below that entire range, whether you're talking about the 9 to 15 minimum. Similarly, this is best practices for transit supportive employment, creating jobs and services near transit along an entire route. And here's what Crestview Station's kind of pro rata share of that would be. And as you can see, the area is also falling short on that. So the city wants to support greater affordability and mobility, but there's still some progress to be made. And projects like this are really where the kind of rubber meets the road, where all of these policies and plans actually get implemented in terms of the actual built environment. And we believe that Crestview Village, the full Crestview Village plan, the plan that encompasses that entire 9.88 acre area that I showed earlier, the 3 different tracks that I referred to that we'll get into more in a moment, we believe that that full plan will help make meaningful progress on each of those goals that I just outlined. So first, affordable housing. We'll be providing extensive and deep affordability with about 224 to 305 affordable units, and that's available at a range of 30% to 80% of the median family income. And for those of you who may not be too familiar with those terms, the city calculates affordable housing according to what the average family in Travis County makes. So if you say a 30% MFI unit, 30% median family income unit, what you mean is a unit that's affordable to a household that makes only 30% of what the average household earns, and so on and so forth. There's a range on the affordable units here because we've presented a couple different options to the city in terms of how they want to proceed on the Austin Energy city-owned development, and that's kind of the range of those options. So this is a pretty extensive commitment to affordability, and I want to be clear also in terms of the good work that the city's been doing. This component in particular is made possible through partnership with the city on the redevelopment of the city-owned Austin Energy site and through City Council's commitment to leveraging city property to help make progress on our affordable housing goals. And that's particularly important here because we know that transportation is also one of the largest expenses for families after housing. So we're able to provide both the affordable units and to do so at one of the most transit-rich locations in the city. And the full Crestview Village vision will also help meet those other goals I walked through a moment ago by adding new housing and commercial space at a major transit hub. And importantly, it will also provide a significant public park featuring a new cultural arts center. The city has goals relating to parkland efficiency. This area is currently, I believe, in a parkland deficient area, and so it would help towards achieving those goals. We're envisioning about 4.7 acres total of new parkland, which for reference would actually be, I believe, about the size of the City of Austin Energy site on its own. So I presented a bunch of different pieces and how do they fit together and how does this relate to specifically to the request for additional height. So as I mentioned earlier, the site's divided up into 3 different tracks, which you can see here. Ben and his brother Peter own 2 of them. They own the front portion of the site up on North Lamar Boulevard, which you can see here in blue. And they own the back track, which you can see in green. The City of Austin owns the big middle tract. That's the one in orange. That's the Austin Energy site. There's a long history to the site, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. But for the purposes of this conversation, just kind of the brief history of it is that the city, through the leadership of Councilmember Poole, District 7 office, and through the advocacy from community members, particularly the folks on the Ryan Drive Working Group, I've been working for several years to try to have the city redevelop this site in order to meet kind of key goals related to things like parkland and affordability. And as part of that, the city ran a competitive bid process in which they set certain benchmarks for what types of things they wanted to see on that site, that orange site. And Ben won. Ben and his brother Peter won with their proposal for the extensive affordability that you saw earlier. And that kind of specific project had about 3 acres of integrated parkland throughout the project. And while that bid process only considered the orange city site in the middle there, Ben envisions a more comprehensive redevelopment that incorporates all 3 tracks and provides what is actually a fairly unique opportunity to do something pretty special here, especially at such a strategic location. And so this case, the case that we're technically here to discuss, it technically only encompasses that blue tract up front. So that's the 2.9 acres that Maureen was referencing earlier, but it's all connected and of a piece. This is the tract on which we are requesting the additional height up to 160 feet on North Lamar. It would not change the height for the rest of the site, just for this tract in blue here. And the request for height is the subject of this plan amendment case, and it's the next approval needed for the full Crestview Village vision that I've been presenting on. And specifically, the increased height on here allows us to achieve a couple key outcomes because it allows us to build up vertically rather than building out horizontally. So the first thing I'll mention on that is that it unlocks a pretty special opportunity for us to work with Cap Metro on a new train station. I'm sure y'all are familiar, the current train station is in a bit, but obviously the orange and blue lines are envisioned to come down North Lamar. And so there's potential here to try to reorient some of that station area over to North Lamar. And the additional height, one of the things that it provides is it provides us more design flexibility on working with Cap Metro to see how we can incorporate that type of thing directly in a way that integrates with this project. So in other words, the additional height would provide us kind of the flexibility to accommodate a full transit hub here where folks could get right off the train or the bus, have immediate access to the site, be it to commercial amenities or to the parkland. And that's a conversation that Ben is actively pursuing with Cap Metro. So that's still ongoing. The second opportunity, the one that may be more salient to folks here, is that building up allows us to put more additional height on this blue site here, and thus frees up area over here on the green tract that allows us to use it for expanding our parkland to the full 4.7 acres. To put that into perspective, the city site, about 3 acres, bringing it up to 4.7 is, I think, roughly a 47% increase in parkland. And this parkland amenity over here would also feature a new cultural arts center, which they would achieve by significantly renovating one of the on-site structures that exist on the site today. Here's kind of a conceptual layout based off of our best understanding of the site to date. I do want to say it's a conceptual layout. It's draft. It's not final. These types of things are always subject to adjustment. But as you can see, the layout as we envision it integrates open space throughout the project, with the idea being that these spaces will draw people in from wherever they're entering the site. So you can see whether it's off of Justin Lane or Ryan Drive, from the current train station, which connects to Midtown Commons, or through the North Lamar fronting tract, which you can see down there at the bottom. Again, the central city-owned Austin Energy tract is the one outlined in red. It's labeled as the primary site plan, and it provides about, like I said, 3 acres of parkland, as well as the extensive affordability that I outlined earlier. And then the additional height down on North Lamar would allow us to use that northern tract you can see up there for the expanded parkland and the Cultural Arts Center. This image right here shows that flow of the open space plan a bit better by conceptualizing it as different zones that all relate to each other. And it helps pull folks through the project, regardless of what side you're coming from. Again, approaching all 3 tracks with more of a comprehensive vision and using the height on North Lamar tract to help unlock these parkland opportunities. This is kind of an initial rendering of how that layout could work in practice. And I say could because Ben is also committed to partnering with the Austin Parks Foundation. And that would be to run a community-driven process to produce a parks plan for the site. So it wouldn't be an imposed plan. It would be a real opportunity here not just to obtain parkland, but also to design that parkland through a collaborative and community-driven process. So I've thrown a lot of information at everyone here, but this kind of is our general summary of where we are with this specific case. This case is the next step. It's the next step in a larger process to develop the Crestview Village site. And through this case, we're requesting 160 feet of height on that track that you saw earlier, the part that fronts up on North Lamar. Adding that height there would allow us to free up land on the northern track where we can expand our parkland and provide a new cultural arts center. It also allows us greater design flexibility, which provides the opportunity for us to engage with Cap Metro on a new rail station over on North Lamar, something that Ben's been actively discussing with Cap Metro. And by providing greater housing and employment opportunities, the additional height will also help bring Crestview Station closer to best practices for how new projects can support more frequent and more reliable transit service. And the other kind of two wonky things on here for those keeping track, first, by building up rather than out, you're able to provide a lower overall impervious cover. And second, in the TOD where the site is located, if you increase the amount of building area, which is measured through something they call Florida Area Ratio or FAR, you generally have to pay a bonus fee to the city. That's done through the TOD. And since we'd be getting more height, we would be increasing the building area, we would be increasing the FAR. And our current estimate is that that would generate about $4.5 million in bonus fee revenue that would not otherwise occur. So to recap, the city has a vision for affordable housing, improved transit service, and parkland access, but it is currently falling short on these goals. Crestview Village offers a unique opportunity to deliver on these goals through a public-private partnership with deep affordability, transit-supported growth, and with new public amenities. And this specific case is the next in a series of approvals, and it would allow the full Crestview Village vision by providing 160 feet of height on the North Lamar fronting tract, thus freeing up other area for expanded parkland, a cultural arts center, and allowing the opportunity to work with Cap Metro on a new rail station. So we just ran through a lot. I'm sure folks have questions. And so with that, our team is available for questions, and we really appreciate y'all joining us this evening.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mark Walters with the Housing and Planning Department. I'll be moderating this evening's discussion. So there's two ways. You could enter your question in the chat, or as Maureen said earlier, you could also raise your hand and I'll call on you in the order that your hand is raised. So does anybody have any questions of the applicant? Okay. The first question is from Mike Levine. Would you unmute, sir, and please ask your question.
Thanks. Appreciate the presentation, Michael, and thanks for working with us so long on this deal. It's kind of exciting what can be done here. I have a couple questions. The first one is regarding compatibility standards. I know the city's talking about removing them altogether in some cases, or greatly reducing them. The height you're seeking now, would it be under current compatibility standards?
So that's a good question. Under the TOD already has, basically compatibility is kind of different within the TOD. So there wouldn't be any sort of plan amendment needed to amend compatibility or do anything along those lines. It would exist fully within the applicable regulations of the TOD as they exist today without
Great.
any sort of changes to code.
Great. And then the rest of the development, it seems like you've got most of the height away from the existing single family homes. Is that right? I kind of had a glance at that stuff when you were showing it on the screen.
Yes, and so if I can, here, I'll try to roll the images back. This, I think, is probably a good kind of proxy for it. You can see the single family is mainly over off. There's like some on Ryan Drive and some on St. John Circle. By pushing the height up to the front, you are moving the height towards the corridor away from single family. And also, I mean, the other component of it is by providing the height over there and thus freeing up all this land on that green parcel and allowing that to be parkland. You know, if you had to build out, horizontally, you would probably have development over there right adjacent to that single family. And so by pulling the development over towards the corridor area, towards the transit service, towards that, all that kind of like mobility hub, you're inherently creating kind of more buffer space by placing the parkland kind of back in the more internal site closer to those single family areas.
Sure. And by right now, currently by right, what could y'all do over there if you didn't ask us?
Well, the TOD generally provides a extensive list of different uses that you're allowed. And then I think that if, Connor or someone else can jump in if I'm getting this wrong, but I believe that for the base height, so there's kind of two different heights. You've got your base height and your bonus height. So I believe the base height on that kind of green tract is 40 feet, and your bonus height, which you could achieve through affordability unlocked, is probably something like 48 to 50 feet.
Yeah.
Not sure if someone knows that off the top of their head. It sounds like Connor might.
Yeah, Michael, I can tell you. So yeah, the green portion, which to be clear is currently privately owned land that the owner is going to donate to the city. It's about an acre and a half, acre and a quarter, in exchange for this increase in height. That is currently zoned to 40 feet, which can go to 60 with affordability unlocked. If it was developed just privately or put on the market. And then the rest of the site has a 60-foot allowance. And if that was all run under affordability unlocked, which it could, because of the high level of affordability that's proposed here, that could go to 90 feet.
Okay.
But the proposal is to keep that pink section, at 60, keep the green section at its current 25 feet. And basically the whole idea is pushing all the height and all the density over towards Lamar, where it's more appropriate context.
Yeah, I personally appreciate. I like that. Also, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place to get into all this, but we just did that Project Connect meeting last week, and they were talking about all the lines meeting there and everything, and I realized that there's a lot of things that y'all are not in control of because it's between the feds and Cap Metro and everything like that. But what can you kind of briefly tell us what you envision in that corner there in terms of the train and the building and how that works?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think probably Ben, since Ben is the man with the vision here. I don't know if you wanted to come in and speak for a moment on your vision for that kind of transit hub right there.
Did you incorporate that one slide that showed the orange line station?
Yeah. So this was a slide from.
There it is, right there.
At Metro.
All right. So this is a slide that shows a Project Connect's vision for the meeting of the orange and the red lines at this corner of Lamar and Airport, right there at the corner of the site. And as you can see, this is an elevated train station that, if you look at the property lines that are outlined in blue there, it overlaps the property that we're talking about, that we're asking for the height increase on. And we envision that station to be incorporated into the building so that there's a seamless transit plaza that essentially, if anybody's been back east or one of the larger eastern cities, where you walk off a train, you walk into shops, you walk into transit, ticket shops, information booths, all of the types of amenities that you want, restaurants and things like that, so that the transit hub becomes alive and it's an active hub. And this right now will be, as we talked about earlier, a major transit hub, not a minor one. And we envision a lot of traffic going in and out of here. And as you can see, you would have then in the plan a sight line right into the park, right into your living spaces. It will be very seamless in the concept. Once again, I have to say that there is nothing. This is all conceptual with Cap Metro, but we all and Project Connect, but we all agree that this is one of those types of goals for a major hub like this. And I just think it'll be spectacular. Like I said, if anybody's been back east in Boston or Washington or some of those places where they have very advanced transit hubs, we'd like to see this look like something like that, a real jewel in the transit crown for the city, as well as a real destination caused by the availability of transit, walkability, bikeability, and the park space all coming together. And I should say that the community center that we're planning to build will also have a performance amphitheater as part of that. So we envision music and plays and local community events that are all supported by this transit hub that should be seamless into the building and then into the site.
Awesome, thanks. And last thing is, I just wanted to say to anybody who's listening here that the park thing is kind of cool. Y'all are talking about like 4.7 acres of parkland, which is a lot more than the city actually put in their RFP, I believe. So I just wanted to note that that is kind of always been one of our goals as a neighborhood association, is to try to make up some ground on that parkland deficiency thing. And I know that one of the things that when asked about what they wanted to see with that land, the number one thing was always like, make it a park, make it a park. So I would just note that the current, it's almost a 5-acre site, right? And you're talking about doing 4.5 acres or so of parkland.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, that's right. It's a 5.5 acre site, but I mean, we did really try to concentrate the density kind of all in one place to free up the, you saw some of the other proposals, they had a bunch of surface parking lots. But the other way they were able to achieve that is by donating that 1.5 acres in permanent parkland there up at the top. And so, yeah, getting a 4.7 acre park out of a 5.5 acre city property, it's not bad.
Yeah, it's a pretty good magic trick. So good job. All right, I'm going to go on mute. I see there's a question in the chat, so I'll let y'all get to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
The question is from LH. What will the 160-foot, 10+ stories building look like? Is there a graphic to show?
I don't think we've gotten to the stage of kind of designing out that portion of it. We had some of these renderings that you saw earlier because specifically from the RFP for the Austin Energy site. And as part of that entire kind of process and being responsive to what the city wanted to see, we had to produce a really extensive package of materials. Because that Austin Energy site process wasn't, the city can only consider things that are on the table for that specific site. We kind of had to keep these additional components out of it. I mean, it was probably informationally, it's, public information that they own both of these, and that they have been, I think, pretty open since then. They have a broader vision for incorporating everything, but there wasn't any kind of renderings or designs done in terms of what the front track could look like. And that'll also be dictated by things like the site planning process, other kind of design constraints that, we think we have a pretty good understanding of what all the constraints are going to be on those right now. But in any development process, you often will have things that end up moving the building this way or that way. Obviously, one of the biggest unknowns is how quickly we can get Cap Metro to work together on a design for kind of the platform here. Obviously, any ways that could change this way or that way would also affect the design of the building. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and I don't think that there's been kind of the level of precision needed to design out renderings for the building. I don't know if Ben or Connor, you have anything to add on that front?
No, I mean, it's just so preliminary to spend an inordinate amount of money on renderings for a building that you're not even sure you're going to build is just not viable for us at this time. We would love to build lots and lots of models, but they're very expensive to do, and we just have not done it.
Right, and to be clear, not sure if you're going to build, meaning we're at the stage right now where we're asking for the ability to build that height. Once the approval for the additional height comes through, then we'll have more certainty towards our ability to actually be able to develop a taller building, and site planning that goes with that.
Yeah, I also want to, as Connor Kenny, I want to emphasize that we're really, we just saw some of these first renderings of the orange line, and some of you, if you were at that public meeting, may have seen the two different options with the red line, whether to depress it or keep it at grade. And this is going to be a transit-oriented development in every sense of the word, and so there is quite a bit of planning to do with Cap Metro on figuring out how these transit stations are going to work. And one thing that we've expressed to Cap Metro is the very strong desire to have the red line and the orange line stops not be stops that are separated by hundreds of yards and just aren't convenient, but to have it be a kind of a true transit station, a transfer station, to have a plaza and a platform that connects to restaurants and shops and leads to the park. So there's still a ongoing kind of iterative process that needs to happen with us and the team and Cap Metro, and we'd really like to engage folks in the neighborhood, especially as part of the park planning process with the Austin Parks Foundation, and really just the opportunity here is to think about something real holistically and not just slap some buildings up. So we'd love to engage with the working group and other stakeholders.
Okay. Does the individual whose phone ends in 5681, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay, just want to give you an opportunity if you wanted to, if you had a question. Are there any other questions, either you'd like to ask in person or in the chat? Please feel free. And if nobody else has any questions, we can end the meeting early. We can get back to our evenings. And this question from Chip Harris. Chip, would you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Thank you. I was just wanting to know if the parkland was going to be city-owned.
Yes, and Connor or Ben, you can jump in if you have any additional information to supply. But I believe that yes, obviously the Austin Energy site, which has a large amount of parkland designed into it, will continue to be city-owned, and this site you can see right here, the one with the Cultural Arts Center, the one that Ben and Peter currently own, will become city property. It will be dedicated as part of this process to the city, and so the city will continue to own it in perpetuity, and it will be parkland in perpetuity. And as you know, there is once the city has parkland and it is considered parkland, thereafter it shall be parkland. Generally, I believe if you're trying to change something from parkland to something else, you have to take it to a vote of the entire city. So there's a lot of strong protections in place for once the city has parkland. I don't know, Ben, Connor, if you have anything to add to that.
No, that's correct. And this is envisioned as a permanent, very, very active site for the community to enjoy in perpetuity. And I should say also that the maintenance of the park is also funded through this effort. It's not
Okay.
going to come out of the city budget.
So
Yeah, that's a great
It's
point, Ben. And I think another thing about I would say that I'm not sure if the city's going to want to take delivery up front or maybe after. I mean, one of the things that we really try to do here is front load all of the funding for the development of the park as well, so that you're not having to wait 20 years for the city to pass a bond to develop the parkland, but to do it privately and then perhaps then turn it over to the city. So it's a great question, Chip, but it's going to be public property, City of Austin, and we're just going to kind of have to figure out the way that they want to play it and the way to do it such as that, we're not sitting around for a decade for anything to happen.
So it's not yet public, it's not yet city dedicated parkland.
Correct.
The agreement to turn it over will execute when the TOD amendment also passes, because it's an exchange, right? It's a deal. And it's part of the package. And so that's when the deal might exchange or the deal might close. We just want to figure out, are we going to move faster to get a park to the people at Crestview by doing the parkland development, as a private party and then donating that to the city, or the reverse? whichever way is going to have it. What we have heard overwhelmingly from folks is that they would like the park to be front loaded so that people can start enjoying that land. And so that's our North Star, and that's what we're operating under. And we're kind of working out with the city now how it's going to work.
And that's the process in terms of once it gets beyond the current policy decision that's before us today in this case, right? So one of the things that actually enables this area to be used as parkland is because we're able to take the development that would otherwise have to kind of be spread out and spread across this area as well and front load it up onto North Lamar. So it's kind of like, in order to get to the stage where you're talking about kind of like how that dedication is going to happen, you first have to answer the policy question about providing that additional height, which allows you to kind of consolidate up into that area, which then frees up this area for parkland.
So we don't know at this point for sure whether it's going to be private or public parkland.
Oh, I think we've said that it's going to be public parkland, and it's on the record as such. So, I mean, to the extent that I'm not sure how to answer that question, because I think we answered that question previously.
It sounds like it's dependent upon, the 160 feet.
That's correct. It's part of the exchange here is the budget, to develop the park, the donation of the parkland, and the exchange is the increase in height on Lamar. Justin, it's a square deal. It's a straightforward deal, and that's what we're looking at. But in terms of how this thing ends up, absolutely no question, it's going to be a public park.
Right, and in terms of the portion of the site that's fully contained within the City of Austin property, that portion of parkland is kind of within that, portion of the approvals. So really, if what we're talking about here is kind of what is unlocked via this additional height plan amendment case, it is truly this kind of portion back here we see labeled as the secondary site property.
I should also say that the park itself, you can see the secondary site property line in the picture that's currently being displayed. That without the height amendment, that portion of the park that you see there will still exist, but it won't be very fancy. It'll be basically grass and trees. You won't see an amphitheater. You won't have a dog park. You won't have a playground. It'll be park, but it's not the jewel that we envision it to be.
Okay, it just sounds a little confusing currently.
Well, there is certainly this moving part. Height on the southern track for the donation and build out of a really stellar park on the northern portion. I mean, as Connor said, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think that this slide is kind of the simplest way to conceptualize it.
Okay, are we done with that question? Sounds like it. The next question is from Tom Wald from the Red Line Parkway Initiative. Tom, would you unmute and ask your question? And following this, we'll go to the question in the chat.
Great, thank you. This is Tom Wald with the Red Line Parkway Initiative. And it's a 32-mile parkway and trail from downtown Austin to Leander, and it goes near this site. And I think in this area, it'll be primarily on the east side of the tracks. And so it's really a secondary issue, but I just wanted to make sure, are y'all working and communicating with Katie Weddick of Austin Urban Trails at the city, and then also with Rose Liska at Capital Metro, who's our point of contact at Capital Metro on the parkway?
So the answer is yes.
So
I apologize. Go ahead.
Just gonna say, we're in touch with the local transit partnership and Cap Metro folks, and we are about ready to kick off the park planning process, and that's when a lot of these threads start coming together. So we don't want to wait on that. We want to go ahead and engage the Parks Foundation to start doing community meetings and design charrettes and everything like that. So yes, we are working with Cmty yet, but on the park design, that's kind of the next step here.
Yeah, and I agree. The park is actually a different thing, so that makes sense. But yeah, as far as working with Capital Metro, are you specifically in touch with Rose Liska? It's a large organization. I just want to make sure that she's in touch, because if there's anything related to that, then she can be in touch with us.
We can make sure that we do.
Okay, that sounds terrific. Thanks.
Well, there's actually two questions in the chat. The first is from LH, and the question is the front track timeline dependent on metro stations? That's going to take a long time. Will the lot remain empty in the meantime?
So the lot, I can answer that one. It is not dependent on the Project Connect or Cap Metro work per se, but we definitely do not want to plan in obsolescence. So there is going to be a just concerted effort to try to forward plan into Project Connect this really wonderful, what we envision as a really wonderful station. And so the answer is no, it will not. But the primary is going to be park first, then the housing, then the larger building on the southern tract.
The next question, and I hope I get this name right, is from Jasu. Are you looking to reduce/eliminate parking in the 160-foot development, given its proximity to the transit station?
We have to build parking for the tenants in the building. We certainly will rely on the transit and our planning. And all parking that we have planned right now will be underground, so that it shouldn't be an eyesore or a issue for the surrounding neighborhoods. And then the further part of the plan is that the underground parking in this larger building will be open to residents and to visitors for the site for evening activities to make it easier to park in case you do drive and don't take the transit.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? No one has raised a hand or put a question in the chat. So if, again, every time I say this, so we can end the meeting early, that usually gets people to ask questions. But if not, we can end the meeting early. While we're waiting, Maureen, you want to put up, Michael, you want to stop sharing your slide, and Maureen can pull up the contact information and go over the next steps in the process. And you're muted, Maureen.
Okay, so the next steps, I will meet with my planning team. I'll report back the questions and comments from tonight's meeting. We will make a preliminary recommendation. We'll pass it on to the zoning planners. We will work with the planning contact team on their recommendation. And once all this is sorted out, we'll start scheduling it for planning commission and city council.
And if you have any comments or questions you'd like to give to either Maureen or Heather, you can either phone or email those questions in. Before we go, Michael, is there any final, or Connor, anything else you'd like to say in summation?
I mean, I just really appreciate y'all putting this together, providing a forum for folks to talk about this. I know that kind of we presented the broader vision, and this is, you know, sometimes these meetings are kind of more narrowly on, you know, this specific case item, but I think that we really, you know, Ben and his brother have a really extensive kind of special vision for this. You know, personally, I live across the street from this, and I cross these properties every day, and so I know that I personally am excited for it. In addition to having the ability to work directly on it with them. So we just really appreciate the ability to come in, talk with folks about it, answer questions, lots of good questions. And I will kick it over to, you know, Connor and Ben, if you have any closing remarks yourself.
Yeah, so I just like to thank everybody as well for their time, for Maureen to set this up. And, you know, we really want to create a jewel here in this neighborhood. We really want something that has world-class transit, that has a park that's unparalleled in the rest of the city with a community center that is number one. And we're determined to do that. And we need your help to do that, obviously. And at the end of it, I think we will all look at this and say, wow, we're really proud of what we built and designed here. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I would also just add that this is just the beginning of this engagement process, and we're really looking forward to engaging with the working group and residents of Crestview, but also Highland and Brentwood, and to get in touch with us if you'd like to be engaged in that design process. We'll get the Parks Foundation going here pretty shortly with the Parks design process. The Cat Metro design process is going to have a bunch more public meetings after this. So it's really just the beginning. And please don't hesitate to reach out. And our goal is to all work together towards this thing and have everybody be able to step back in a few years and say, we really did this right. So please don't hesitate to get in touch.
Yeah,
And
Connor, go ahead.
I've talked to Mike Levine, and we are going to try to do some local, outside of this process for the community to come in and just ask us questions one-on-one instead of through the electronic. So look forward to that in the near future. We're going to try to set up some in-person things that we can, let people have a little bit more relaxed atmosphere to poke at this and with as much time as they need.
Okay, other than do people have a way to contact you, either Connor or Michael? Just go, you have your email out there. You can put it in the chat. Though we're about wrapping up, or do folks get in touch with you if they have questions?
I'm putting my email in the chat right now.
Good. While we're waiting for that, okay, I'm looking at 5 different screens here. Thanks. So it's mgaudini@abaustin.com. And on behalf of Maureen Meredith, I would like to thank you, everybody who participated, for giving us some of your time tonight to find out about this project. And with that, I'd like to wish you a good evening, and you can go get to our dinners. So have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Night.
Night.
Bye-bye.